really can because players have broken down, and that's the big storyline now. I agree with you, John, that this is the best, most balanced, toughest division, maybe in all of Major League Baseball, definitely, I think, in the National League. I'm reaching on this because Philadelphia's got two injury problems here on opening day. No Bryce Harper coming off the elbow surgery. He had a mystical season last year, phenomenal run playing with a bad elbow, strictly as a designated hitter. I don't know, I think in postseason he hit 348, which is a tremendous number. But he is out till probably June as he continues to rehab from the elbow surgery he had right after the World Series. And then they lost Rhys Hoskins, their power hitting third baseman, went down with a significant torn ACL on the last week of spring training over in Clearwater. So they're a little bit dinged, but they got bats. They got bats all over the lineup. They've still got the front end of the pitching rotation led by the horse, Zack Wheeler. They went into the marketplace and they added 3 relief pitchers, led by the ex-Padre and Atlanta Brave, Chicago Cub, Craig Kimbrell. I think they're a really good team, and they're going to score a lot of runs because they play in that bandbox stadium. I think this race is going to be closer than anybody realizes, only because of the injuries to Harper and Hoskins. Now we'll see if somebody else surfaces within the division to chase them away. But I'm picking Philadelphia because I just like everything that they've got, and I think they've added enough free agent arms as insurance policies. They did let go, and I was a bit surprised, but it's a dollar decision. Zach Eflin, they let him go to Tampa Bay. On we go. New York Mets. Atlanta Braves. My goodness. Let's start with Atlanta. Probably the best farm system in Major League Baseball, maybe over the last 4 to 5 years. Alex Anthopoulos, I think, has done a phenomenal job as general manager. They got Ronald Acuna, and they've got themselves a host of big bats. They got infielders who can hit, which is really amazing. And then you add into the fact that they traded for Sean Murphy, the power hitting catcher from the Oakland Athletics, and they shed, I think it was 4 to 6 prospects to make that deal with the Athletics to happen. They have a tremendous young pitcher. However, he's not totally healthy. Kyle Wright has just been put on the disabled list because he was a 20-game winner last season. They'll think he'll be back within 2 weeks' time. They're going to have to baby him, I think, a little bit because he had a cortisone injection in his shoulder in January, so he's a little behind the power curve. But they got so many good young players, and they've got depth in pitching, and they just keep bringing all these guys up. So I got Atlanta right there. I got the Mets finishing very close to everybody else atop the division. I know it's sexy to talk about $324 million in payroll, and I know it's impressive to talk about Mad Max and Justin Verlander at the front of the rotation. They're both 40 years of age. A little concerned, though, after that, what happens? Their roster outside of Peter Alonso, the batting order, doesn't scare me. Now, Alonso will hit 40 to 50 home runs. That's the kind of player he is. I just don't know if they got enough big bats around him. And they've lost some guys to free agency, too, so they could go sign those pitchers. I'm not going to say it's going to be a down year, although they lost Edwin Diaz in the WBC, and that's significant. Now, maybe there's a transaction coming that's going to get them another closer. But all of a sudden, their batting order looks a little bit thin to me around Alonso. And now there's a hole at the back end of the bullpen where you'd normally give that ball to Diaz and ninth inning would be over before you sat down with the extra cup of coffee. I think the Mets are going to be good. I just wonder about the injury factor there. And then, the rest of the East, you got Miami, great young pitching. Holy cow, Sandy Alcantara, unbelievable. And, they're 5 deep in the starting rotation, which allowed them to trade Pablo Lopez to Minnesota. They got Arias in as part of that deal. They've dabbled a little bit in free agency. It's still a really, really young team. But as long as those young arms keep taking the ball every 4th or 5th day and pitching the way they pitched last season, Miami's making progress, small budget. I don't know that the fans are ever going to put their arms around Marlins baseball because they feel betrayed by what happened decades and decades ago when they won the World Series and then the ownership promptly shipped everybody out in pay cuts. And in Washington, this is horrific. The faster this franchise is sold from the Lerner family, the better it's going to be for Washingtonians. This is terrible. There is no Steven Strasburg. I fear career-ending, multiple nerve damage injuries, neck, collarbone, shoulder, Poor guys had so many surgeries. They're stuck with a $245 million insurance coverage contract. They don't spend any money. They look like a ragtag roster. And you consider who they used to be just 3 years ago. Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto and Strasburg, and all those guys are gone. So that's another 100 loss season there. Franchise has been up for sale for a while. The sooner it gets sold, new baseball, new money, new philosophy come in to rally the thing. Are you going to agree with me, or are you going to disagree with me about Philadelphia, Atlanta, the New York Mets?
Well, I'm going to disagree on Philly. I mean, I think that, they're in trouble, with losing Hoskins and Bryce Harper not going to be playing for quite a period of time. The team that is interesting to me, and they have no hope to win the division, is Miami, because you were talking about how the fans don't support them. But when they had the WBC in Miami, that was a full house. I mean, there's a lot of baseball fans there. If they could just have a well-run franchise, I think they would get the support. But I think the Mets are just going to be a soap opera all year. Losing Diaz has been trouble. I'm going with the Braves to win this. The Braves impress me. They seem like they are always bringing up the young talent at the right time. They make these really strategic trades, and they really have no weaknesses. If you look at their hitting, their defense, their pitching. So I'm going to go with Atlanta.
Okay. On we